everyone to our Leaders and Managers monthly meeting. It is a huge pleasure to welcome Nancy Stewart, who is the lead on the Birth to 5 Matters project. As you are aware, there has been a huge level of debate and discussion about the new EYFS and also about the Development Matters document, which has now supported the revised EYFS. It is important to remind us all that this is a non-statutory document. It is important to remember that we all have flexibility to interpret not only the guidance, but also our Montessori practice. It has been believed that as the Montessori community, we have had plenty of tools to demonstrate that we can work within the constraints of the EYFS and that we can demonstrate high quality practice and practice above of what is required from the statutory document. Anyway, I'm sure that Nancy will be able to tell us much, much more about the work that has been done and which has been funded from, or part funded from the very beginning by Montessori St. Nicholas. And I have been very grateful to the charity for supporting this important work, because I believe it was necessary to produce a document which was prepared by the sector for the sector, demonstrating the respect that each one of you deserves for caring for children. So over to you, Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see all these faces and see a lot of people who've come together to find out about Birth to 5 Matters, which I'll take you through in some of the process, as well as a little bit what it's actually about and what it's for. As Barbara said, it's EYFS guidance. So its purpose is to support practitioners' settings in implementing the statutory EYFS. But it's guidance that comes not from the government, but it's by the sector and for the sector. It's our own guidance, working together to produce it. So it's there to support practice, meant to be a very practical, how can you think about this in your context, and give some principles for people to consider their own practice. It is not a clean slate starting over. It's very much built on EYFS guidance that we've had in the past that we know has been held in fairly high regard, but as with anything that's been around for a few years, as we learn more, we can update it and improve it, which we are doing. And it's also very much built on firm evidence. With that, we are looking at two types of evidence primarily. One of them is research evidence. So we've had a literature trawl of the last 10 years of international evidence around early years to see what needs to be updated. And each of the sections that we're developing, we're referencing and looking carefully to be sure that we know what basis we're starting from. But the other kind of evidence is practice evidence. What is held in the understanding of this very skilled profession that we work in, and listening to what people have learned through their own inquiries, their own curiosity, and their own thinking about their work with children and families. We very much wanted to meet the needs of practitioners. So we've been asking people all the way through, what do you need? What do you want? And it's meant to be for the sector in that way. It's being produced by the Early Years Coalition, which is a group that came together 2.5 years ago, roughly, when the government started talking about revising the EYFS. So all these organizations came together to provide evidence to inform the revision initially. Since then, they've moved on to saying, now we've been given the revision. We didn't necessarily think that a lot of our points had been taken into account, but now we have what we have as the statutory responsibilities and duties. So let's look at how we can support practitioners to use that. So these are the organizations. Big span. Early education has initially convened it and is sort of chairing it. We have organizations that have tens of thousands of settings that they are associated with. The Early Years Alliance, the National Day Nurse Association, and the National Education Union. So many schools and teachers becoming involved. We have people who are involved in research and training. So we've got that side of training practitioners to be. We have groups that are coming at pedagogy from different angles and looking at their particular view from practice on the ground. And we have some groups who represent strong philosophical and pedagogical traditions that are feeding into it. So it's a very broad coalition that's worked together really wonderfully and with a very strong sense of common purpose to produce this work. So initially, as I said, I got together to work with the DFE, the Department for Education, and to help inform their policy. I thought it is useful to look at what's happened with the revisions in terms of what the DFE identified themselves as their policy tests. This was questions to ask themselves to make sure that they are doing a good job and coming up with policies that are going to be right for the sector. So what's the point? Has it got a purpose? What are you sure what the purpose is? What's it got to do with us? Is it really necessary? Is it something that government should be getting involved in? Who made you the expert? Is it evidence-based? Are you being predictable? Or are you thinking in an innovative way? And of course, what's the point of a policy if it doesn't work? So is it deliverable? So I thought, well, it would be useful to look at a couple of these. So let's start with, what's the point? Is it purposeful? Well, the Department for Education said their purpose was that we should clarify and refine the early learning goals. That's the statements used at the very end of the reception year to inform the next stage teachers to look at what point have children reached in their learning. And they also said it's to reduce the assessment burden on teachers. Later, they changed that slightly to say, yes, reduce the workload. Now, what they're talking about there is not so much tick listing and endless mapping against statements, but actually spend more time with the children and thinking about that interaction. They also said they wanted to improve attainment, especially language and literacy for disadvantaged children. So there's a big push on communication and language and extra programs put in. How they're going about improving language and literacy is open to question, as we'll see. So the next question, what's it got to do with us? So is it necessary? They based the fact that they wanted to revamp the early learning goals on this consultation that they ran 4 years ago. And it was a primary school consultation about primary school accountability. And within that consultation, they said, what do you think about the early learning goals? And on the basis of answers there, of people saying, well, they're a bit unclear, we're not sure they're helpful, they made the decision to change everything. But look who answered here. They were not people who knew about young children and the early years. Very few people who were responding from within the EYFS, and most of those even were reception teachers, not working with younger children and then across a range of settings. So they didn't really have a strong mandate. Yes, none of the questions was, we're thinking of reviewing and rewriting the whole EYFS. What do you think about it? But that is what they've done. They changed all the early learning goals, all the educational programs. They've removed some aspects of development. So we don't have technology, we don't have space, shape, and measure. And they shifted others about in different ways. They've also downgraded the characteristics of effective learning, giving them, they, for one thing, misdefined them. Instead of talking about how children learn, they think they're talking about the rate in which children learn. And they've also stopped it being a requirement for reception teachers to comment on that, to pass that on. So it's got, you know, no real focus now in the new framework. So was it necessary? Not really. Who made you the expert? Is it evidence-based? The Early Years Coalition commissioned this review of the evidence that was carried out by CREC, the Centre for Research in Early Childhood. And they said the evidence suggests that it does not need to be significantly changed. Lots of things are right about it, working well. However, things can be improved. We could put more emphasis on the characteristics of effective learning. We could give greater prominence to personal, social, and emotional development, and also some modifications in communication language. And as they went on, the coalition said, the evidence that was used was very limited. It was intervention studies, which means, you know, trying to make it like a test tube kind of evidence that you've got to have a control group and so on, which is not really the way we learn about children in their infinite variability. So a very narrow range of interventions were suggested. So anyway, it's happened. And we have the new statutory framework, which will be our legal requirement from September. And some people are already early adopters in schools. About a fifth of schools are early adopters. And in that case, their associated nurseries are using it already. So Birth to 5 Matters sits alongside it to support its implementation, to work together with it. I think it's useful to see what are our statutory requirements, because actually they're very thin. What are we being told we need to do? We are told that the curriculum sits within the 7 areas of learning and development, which we had before, 3 prime areas, 4 specific areas. And for each of those, we were given an educational program. That educational program is a paragraph only, covering from birth to the end of the reception year. So it's not giving you any detail about how you work with children in those areas. It's very broad general statements. And really, that's it. That's all the statutory responsibility. Except we have early learning goals. People sometimes think our job is to organize everything around the early learning goals. However, the early learning goals are for the end of the EYFS only, and the statutory framework makes that clear. They are an assessment tool for the end, for that handover to year 1, and they should not be used as a curriculum. So there's no need for us to organize ourselves and our strands and our understanding around those. They're a check at the end. So we're not given a lot. It's a very thin skeleton. And Birth to 5 Matters is there to help us put the body onto that skeleton and think, how do we do this? How do we work with children? And also, there's no particular teaching approach within the statutory framework. So it's up to us to decide, how do we work? What is our pedagogy within that? The point that Barbara made at the beginning was it's non-statutory guidance is an important one, because people have often confused what is the requirement with what is optional. And I'm going to just show you some of the non-statutory guidance we've had over the years. So way back in the year 2000, which I remember well, we had the curriculum guidance for the foundation stage. That was non-statutory. And then in 2002, Birth to 3 Matters was introduced. Then along came in 2008 the amalgamation of those two, also put into it the daycare standards. So we had one framework that covered birth to the end of the foundation stage. And that had a lot of guidance. It had the cards, it had extra online things, it had CD with video clips and all sorts of things, but all non-statutory. The statutory part was just a few pages, a bit like we have now, very few actual requirements. Then 2012, the EYFS was revised, and that development matters, which people have largely been using, came in. And that again is non-statutory, not part of what you must use. To support the new revision, we have this development matters, which has been released and produced by the government to support people to implement it. It is non-statutory, and we will be issuing alongside that birth to 5 matters. The government is very clear and is stating it in their draft revision of the legal document. And Ofsted is very clear that none of these are required and nobody will expect you to be using any one of these. Totally up to practitioners and settings, what they find useful to use one, go back to the old ones, use birth to 3 matters, use something from another country, use both, use neither. Totally up to us. There's also all this, which we are reviving a bit and we'll have as online resources. Quite a bit of this is really useful guidance that will be handy to be able to let people click and find it when they want it. So we want to meet the needs of practitioners, and to do that, we want to harness the expertise to ask people, what do you know is important and what do you want this document to have? And we've asked people to get involved in many ways to tell us what is important and how we could make it better, what we might have missed. We've had very transparent consultation. We started with a very open online survey about, let's get started, what do you want of this project? We've had focus groups, various organizations have held member events, and when we've done the drafts, draft 1, draft 2, they've been published online with an open survey and consulting to have feedback immediately on those. We also have just wonderful and impressive input from our 19 specialist working groups, which are each looking at a particular area of pedagogy, and it's 100 people altogether, mixture of people working currently in settings and researchers, drafting sections, and then they all come to me and I have to amalgamate them, and we then take all the feedback, revise it, etc. And the working groups are also providing the evidence and the extra resources that will go online. And we've had reference groups that we go to now and then to say we need a bit more opinion on something in particular. So the reason we're asking all of these people is we know there is such a strong base of early years pedagogy that is too often discounted. And we felt it was part of the who made you the expert question to the government that they weren't necessarily responding to listen to all of the wealth of knowledge and understanding. So the pedagogy rooted in beliefs, and then the practices through which we can help support children's development and learning. This core of who we are as professionals, very much starting from our values. What do we want for children? What do we feel are the entitlements of children as human beings and as young learners? And then we have our professional knowledge about child development, about ways people learn, about all of the areas of learning, and about particular techniques and strategies and approaches, which feeds into practice. It's not static, because as professionals, we are constantly learning. not only through, a planned CPD program of going in on a course and thinking about it and implementing something, but every day as we observe and think about the responses of children and make our theories and find out whether they seem to make sense in the real world of interactions with children. So that's a huge amount there that needs to be taken seriously. It is something that builds over years and years, and each person, in a sense, has their own. And then along comes a framework. It's changed, what, 3-4 times in the last 2 decades, and they change all the time. They come and go, but our pedagogy has more continuity. So when it comes, it doesn't turn us on our heads and make us start over. We interpret it. We look at what it's asking us to do and maybe what we're required to do. And sometimes we learn from it. We say, oh, that's an area that perhaps we need to pay more attention to. But we also interpret it in the light of what we know. So that's the role of Birth to 5 Matters, to take that skeleton of the EYFS and to help us to tune back in to our pedagogy and to interpret it for ourselves. So we're saying it's by the sector and for the sector. And it has caused an enormous amount of conversation, not least within the working groups, within these 100 people. A lot of thought, a lot of exchange of views, not always straightforward because we don't always agree. There have been a number of different perspectives on things that need to be hammered out to come to a point where we can say, we agree on some fundamentals that we want to share with people for them to apply in their own context. So we started out asking the sector in October. And this was our very open survey saying, what would you like of this project? And I'm showing you these because we had very similar breakdown of who responded in each of our 3 major surveys. So when we said, what is your role? You can see there by the sort of 3/4, they are working now in settings and schools. And when we said, where do you work? What kind of setting? It's again a good spread between nursery schools, preschools, voluntary, few childminders, primary schools, nursery schools. The rest is consultants, universities, etc. And so we felt we are hearing from the people who it's for. So very, very satisfied with that. And the key message that we got back was, we want the EYFS to be based around the principles that we think are important, that it starts from a unique child, and that the adult role is encompassed really within those relationships and environments, the way we interact with children, the opportunities and experiences and spaces we provide for children. And the interaction of that leads to the learning and development. And we want it to be play-based. So people said, we want more on play. We want more on the characteristics of effective learning. We do want the Birth to 5 Matters to show us a typical developmental pathway, but not in a prescriptive way, not a sense of steps that every child is expected to go through in a certain order. We wanted to support us to do observing and understanding where children might be and to think how to support them, but not as a checklist. And periodic assessment of progress, so a summative assessment with just a wide best fit band. So lots of other things. They want additional resources, you can just skim that, but some important messages there, that all of which we've tried to respond to. And that really important one too, don't change too much, that we don't need a sea change, but let's evolve. So what's it going to be? A practice guidance core document, which will be based on or grow out of previous documents, but much more expanded with a lot more in it. really putting back the pedagogy in the front of the current one, which is really just the trajectories. It will be free. All our resources will be freely downloadable as a PDF and online other things as well. The core document will have a digital version that you can flip about and reorganize to look at different parts in different combinations, and links to a lot more information and evidence. We have new sections on each of these areas, and that's been really rewarding to see the working groups come together to focus on some of these really fundamental areas that we wanted to build together as the background, all organized within those principles of the EYFS. So we got it all together. We asked them draft 1 in December into early January. And 2 main questions: is it clear and accessible? Have we got the right pitch? And will it actually help in practice? And then we asked the very open questions about what could be better. How can we improve it? And we again had that same cross-section of people working in different kinds of settings. I've put here the response on the section on play, because we asked them that about every single section. And the blue and the green is agree and strongly agree. Is it clear and easy to understand? Yes, 93% said yes. And will it help to support practice? 92% said yes. And that was a very similar picture across all of our areas. So a strong endorsement. We also asked this: how are we going to deal with age stage bands? Because we recognize every child is unique, and yet people are wanting a possible developmental trajectory to look at where the kind of process within each area might be. How can we express that that doesn't mean that it's a prescription for an individual child, and children need to be looked at as individuals? So how can we do that? And that's been a question we've asked at each stage as we've tried to hone down on a response. And we had immediately very positive response that it will make a difference, and including so many voices, democratic practice at its heart. So we took that back to the working groups, and lots of questions. How are we going to build in the hundreds of comments to that open question? What have we missed? How can we make it better? Alongside looking at every one of those comments, we looked at that. What are we going to do about the age stage bands? We looked more closely at summative assessment. We reviewed it all in terms of the approach to the youngest children. Did we have enough emphasis on the particular developmental phase of birth to 3? And being conscious all the way through that we are not giving a recipe, we are providing guidance and encouraging each individual's pedagogy. Draft 2 consultation has just finished recently. And one of the big things we consulted on there, as well as, again, asking for all of the comments, was to show them our solution, the way that we're looking at these age stage bands. We have got these color-coded areas that we're calling ranges. I think of it as a child or group of children at the one side of a meadow, and you're all going to get across eventually to the other side of the meadow, but you can go any way you like through there. But in the first bit you'll be somewhere in here, and then the next bit you'll be somewhere there. So you're in a range, but it's not a specific prescription. It's a broad range. And then we're encouraging people to look where the child is. Don't think about their age first. Think, does this kind of help us to understand the span of development? And then the suggestions are there, prompts for adults to think about, how could I support children at that level? But then people were very concerned that we do need ages in some way, because they said, how will we know, particularly for less experienced practitioners, if a child might need extra support and is not showing a typical pattern of development? So what we've done is, on a key page elsewhere, provided a key that shows the overlapping ages. Each band is not one age, it could be within that. So if you were looking at a child who was 30 months, you would look at that 24 to 36 and say, well, they could be anywhere from range 3 to range 4. They'll be probably somewhere in there, would be typical. So we asked people, do you think that that worked? And again, we had a good endorsement of that approach. We asked them, did it meet our purposes? So yes, it will support new and inexperienced practitioners to understand development. It will help us to see where children need support. It will support observation, assessment, and planning. And it is better than what we had before. So we're pleased that that is being seen as an improvement of a very difficult question. And we had some really great feedback again. I absolutely loved reading this guidance. It resonated with my beliefs and approaches. While an experienced practitioner, it still allowed me to reflect on current practice and where improvements can be made. And we had many, many, many very positive, appreciative comments of people welcoming the guidance. So that's really rewarding to see. So here's our progress. Been a very rapid journey. We started, as I said, only in October. We convened the working groups, we ran our initial survey. And between October and mid-December, we wrote the first draft, which went out for consultation. Then we dipped down over the hill and took on board all the feedback, revised it, and the second draft was out for consultation through February, a couple of weeks in February. Now again, we're in the let's rework it, and also very quickly put together all of our online resources, because the launch is going to be on the 31st of March, very soon. So do look out for it and see if it's something that will offer things to you. I wanted to take this time to share with you some of the issues that have been debated a lot, and where we feel that Birth to Five matters is giving another slant on what might be coming from the government's approach and what we're being encouraged to do. So one is curriculum. What is it? There's a huge focus on curriculum now from Ofsted. That's what they say their major look is going to be. And this is how some government documents are defining curriculum. Top level plan of everything the setting wants the children to learn. And they're also saying it should be carefully sequenced, because you need to know one thing before you can learn the next thing. So my understanding is that a lot of people who are being early adopters are busily sequencing all of their curriculum. So it's very structured. Ofsted has said intent of the curriculum is all the planning that happens before a teacher teaches the knowledge pupils need to learn the next thing. So work your way up the ladder. They're looking for a curriculum that's coherently planned and sequenced. Does it contain the right knowledge in the right order? Just today, I was involved in a conference where Wendy Ratcliffe, who's the early years lead in Ofsted, was talking about curriculum. And she showed this slide. She said, you can't have missing knowledge because it might fall over, like that wobbly Jenga. You need to build it very solidly in the right order. I was pleased to see she has the prime areas at the bottom, and she said, that's the firm foundation, which is great. But she also said curriculum is there to outline what children need to know and hold in their long-term memory. So what they need to know. And then your practice is, are you doing a good job implementing it? Are you paying attention to ensuring that that new knowledge is held in the long-term memory? So have we planned a sequence? Are we sure they've got it? Well, is that what curriculum is about? When I come back to my pedagogical core, I think I'm not sure I would look at it that way. This is a question that I've asked practitioners over many years when we talk about what are your values, what really matters to you. And I think tell them how important they are. We know that early years experiences ripple on and have an effect through children's lifetime. So what are the things that you hope that when children move on from working with you, that they will take with them? And this is just one thing where we flip charted it. These are the sort of things people say. They never say, know their letter sounds. They say things that are important for children for life. And most of them tend to be, in EYFS terms, personal, social, and emotional development, and the characteristics of effective learning, which is exactly what the evidence of the literature review said at the beginning for the coalition. More emphasis on the characteristics of effective learning, more emphasis on PSED, because these make a difference for children's lives. So if that's what we value, I would say that's what needs to be our curriculum, not knowledge that they embed in their long-term memory and, bits of knowledge to learn. It's developing the foundation of who you are and how you see yourself and others and how you learn. So in Birth to Five Matters, we're not talking about a series of things, that statements of bits of knowledge that children should learn. For one thing, we're aware of that unique child principle, which says children are constantly learning. So everything, not just the planned activities where we think we're going to give them a piece of knowledge, but they're constantly learning through all their experiences and the way we interact. So we're talking about a co-construction, that it's not a ladder, that, like those children going across the meadow, they'll weave in and out and go in their own ways. And we need to be responsive to where they are and work with children and what they bring to us. So yes, more than a list of skills and knowledge to be achieved. It's about how they learn and how they learn about their own learning. And that needs to be part of how we see our curriculum. What experiences are we giving children to develop those really fundamental things? We've also had a lot of thought about assessment. The original EYFS, the current one before they change it in September, says this: ongoing assessment, formative assessment, is an integral part of the learning and development process. It involves practitioners observing children on an ongoing basis, understanding their level of achievement, interests, and learning styles, and then shape learning experiences for children reflecting their observations. And that's a very familiar cycle that we would say is fundamental. Well, the new version has changed that. They've taken out observation. They said it involves practitioners knowing children's levels of achievement, interests, and learning styles, and then shaping learning experiences for each child, reflecting that knowledge. How do they think we should know if we're not observing? I know the reason they've taken it out, or I strongly suspect, is that they think observation is the tick box and it's a workload issue and we're recording too many observations, rather than knowing that we do it internally and it's what we know about children through watching and thinking about them. But what the effect of that is to say, we need to assess in a different way. And very much the government is also moving toward testing, so that we have the baseline assessment coming in for reception and the sense that you can just sit a child down and ask them. I wanted to share with you this little video clip, which is part of an assessment used for this government push for children's language. As part of the catch-up program, they're putting a program into reception classes, and they want to screen children first. So have a look at this. They say it's a short, fun assessment. Do you think this child feels safe, comfortable, etc.? And then this child might, what about all children who may feel much less comfortable in this kind of situation.
Language Screen is an app with 4 subtests. Language Screen assesses children's language skills. It's suitable for children aged 3 to 8 years. Right. It says, where is it? Shall we see if we can scan it? Did you hear the beep? It said, yes, you can play the game.
I'm going to show you some pictures on the screen. I want to find out how many you know. Tell me what each picture is. Let's start.
Are we ready?
Passion.
Well done.
Gecko.
Well done. Aren't you doing well?
Volcano.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Here we go.
I'm going to play you 3 stories. At the end of each story, I will ask you some questions about it. Listen carefully, because I want to find out how much you can remember.
Okay.
A day out. Tilly went to the bus stop with her granny. She was excited. Today they were going to see the lions and the monkeys. Where did Tilly go?
To the zoo.
Very good. Do you have the next one?
How did Tilly get there?
With the bus.
Very good.
I'm going to show you some pictures on the screen. The pictures will be in 4s. You have to point to the picture which matches the word. Sheep. Balloon.
You point and I press.
Medal.
Can you just point? Yeah. Okay. Right, let's play the instructions.
I'm going to play you some sentences. After each sentence, I want you to repeat it back to me. I want to find out how much you can remember. I help Mum.
I help Mum.
Very good. Well done.
My red scarf is nice and warm.
My red scarf is nice and warm.
Very good. You're very good at this. Very good. Okay.
So there we have it. A child who's got a disembodied voice saying to him over and over, I want to find out how well you can. No context. And we know that those sort of tests are very discriminatory in terms of children who are used to that kind of activity. A child who's much less confident and who isn't being told all the time, oh, isn't that lovely, aren't you doing well, is going to have a very, very different experience. And we also know that some of these tests where children are given closed tasks don't show what they can actually do in real life in a context in which they're comfortable and safe. Here's an example, another language one, where a young child was shown a picture like this, adults going down a road with rain and umbrellas. The tester was to read each unfinished sentence only twice, and the child had to complete the sentence. Tester, it's raining. The people are all getting silence. It's raining. The people are all getting nothing. Wrong, incorrect. But the instructor was curious and just thought, well, I'll make it comfortable. They're all getting wet, aren't they? No, they aren't. They have their umbrellas. So, we're not getting the true picture of the child there, are we? And here's another one, maths one. This was from a baseline assessment a few years ago where the children were given sets of animals in 3s and 3 fields and told, oh, the animals have all got out of their fields. Can you help the farmer by sorting them back into their pastures, into the right pen? So one child did it that way. And that's wrong. That was not what sorting meant in terms of the mind of the tester. But the curious person giving the test said, so why did you put them in like that? because I thought they wanted to be with all their other friends. So, that's a criteria, that's careful testing, but that's wrong. Testing a very young child is fraught with trouble.
1,
Listen to this one.
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 8.
All right, can you count higher than that?
I can count higher like this.
I love that. I think, we don't know what's in the child's mind, how they're interpreting what we're saying to them. He certainly did count higher, didn't he? Excellent. Okay, so let's just apply those 5 tests to Birth to 5 Matters to see if we would meet DFE's standards for a world-class project. What's the point? Is it purposeful? Yes, we are very clear about our purpose: to support practitioners and settings to think through their pedagogy and to make the EYFS come alive in their settings in a way that fits with their values and principles and works for them and children. Is it necessary? Well, yes, the sector is telling us it's necessary. All of these organizations have come together to say we need more than that, what we're being told through the government, and we need to come together to share this perspective. Who may do the expert? Is it evidence-based? Absolutely, both research and practice evidence. Are you being predictable? Well, I'd say not, because 2 years ago we never would have predicted we'd be doing this, and I don't think something like this has happened before, of such cooperation across the sector and coming together in such a major project. Will it actually work? Well, it's worked so far in that we've kept to our deadlines. It is going to come out on the 31st of March, and whether it's deliverable in the end depends on whether it is being used, whether people find it of use and it's making a contribution. And that remains to be seen. But I hope people will have a look, think about it, and decide whether it's of use for you. And in the end, that's what it's about, isn't it? It's that span of development and having the variety and the joy and appreciating the privileged position that we're in to be part of young children's lives and make the most of it.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
It's still not there. We go.
Wonderful. Here we are all together, and this is your opportunity to put questions into the chat box. We have already had some conversations. I think that generally speaking, everybody was horrified about the tests and appalled at this treating of young children with such little respect and so little understanding of what children can do and how to work with them. For me, the lack of focus on learning is extremely painful, and I'm sure that all my Montessori colleagues will agree to that. Our very first question in the chat, Nancy, was from Leanne. She wanted to know how big were the responses to the consultations.
The first one was nearly 1,700. That was the bigger open one. Actual detailed responses to the drafts were about, I think it was 320 some for responding to draft 1 and 370 something for draft 2. Alongside that, we have some probably 100 or more from various focus groups and reference groups that have come in. But that's the scale of the responses we've taken in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the floor? I think you are all a little bit shocked by what is expected of you by the government, but I also hope that Nancy's presentation has ensured you or assured you that we don't actually need to adhere to the government development matters, that you have the freedom to use this document as your guidance to demonstrate the good practice and commitment to children that you already have. There's a question if we have a copy of the presentation. Well, this whole session is being recorded and it will be part of the recording. But I also think that once the document is out, the introductory sections, the sections on the characteristics of effective learning, on inclusion, on risk-taking, will be very, very useful tools if taken just independently for small-scale professional development with your teams. It will remind you why we are there together, what we are doing. The recording is always posted on the Montessori Musings website. All the sessions we have done have been available together with other documentation. Yes.
There is a question from Teresa. Will there be examples of best practice for observation and assessment?
Yes, I hope so. I've just had emails from the person who's coordinating our observation, assessment and planning group today, because there is a real need for case studies as examples and possibly examples of formats that some people are using. And she said, yes, they will have some. They're working on some for babies, some for toddlers, and some for slightly older children. We would like to have more. And so because our deadline is the 31st of March for the launch, I can't guarantee more than a little handful by then. But we will hopefully have the facility to keep uploading more examples as we go along.
I also hope that using the development, the Burst to 5 Matters document will free you a little bit from using the electronic recording systems. The new EYFS doesn't require you to track children's development anymore. It gives you an opportunity to get to know the children for who they are and record some of their voices, as we have discussed in the past when we were looking at the New Zealand model of celebrating children's achievements and sharing those achievements with the families. I think this is a really, really important tool for us as Montessorians, because the knowledge of the child is absolutely at the heart of our practice, and it really needs to be celebrated rather than highlighting the deficits, because development in the early years is so fluid and each child brings something very special with them. Marian has said she's really pleased to see some of the documentation which are being planned to make them available. Yes, the whole idea is we are seeking further funding so that more resources can be developed. Any more questions? Any further observations or comments on Nancy's wonderful, clear, accessible presentation about this huge project that has taken over her life, but also the life of many of the people who have contributed to the documentation?
I could perhaps just tell you one more thing that I'm really looking forward to, because we had a focus from the beginning on trying to put more priority, more attention on the characteristics of effective learning as central to how we support children to develop themselves. The Coalition has commissioned a short film, a 10-minute film, which is the introduction to characteristics of effective learning. And I've seen the draft of it so far, and we've got, you know, the script that takes you through, and it has lovely footage from babies on up and just little snippets of children being powerful learners and thinking about what they're doing. And I think it'll be a great resource to use with staff teams to talk about our understanding of each of those and how we see those learning behaviors and habits within our children, and also really to share with parents. I think it'll be useful for that as well. So that's going to be on the website as well. And again, freely available to anyone.
Am I right in thinking that it's Siren Films who are helping you to produce this? Siren
Yes.
Films may be familiar to many of you who have done recent training at MCI, a really fantastic company with huge,
Yes.
sensitive approach to children. Yeah.
Marion has just studied that children have the most impressive voices.
Yeah, quite.
And
Absolutely.
quite so.
And we just need to take a little bit more time to always hear what they say. Sometimes our agenda overtakes what they are saying. So being reminded all the time that children have a voice and have a, as somebody said recently in one of these presentations, children comes to us with gifts. Oh, it was Helen Moylet who used this Stefariki quote, children come to us with gifts. I just love that.
Yes.
Will this be available on any of your websites whenever your website is up and running?
The website is up and running, but
Okay.
it's very sparse at the moment. So more work is being done, isn't it, Nancy?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
And
we've got all the functionality. It just needs all the material put in there. But yes, it will all be available on the website.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jane, for your question as well.
Yeah.
Oh, the website address.
But Nancy, don't worry, we will include it with the recording
Okay,
tomorrow.
fine. Yes,
Yeah.
it's on the first slide too. When you look at the slides, you'll have it there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have actually reminded you of the website every time the consultation came out. We have shared the details of the consultation either on our Facebook page or in our newsletter. Wendelin is very diligent about all of this. Well, guys, if that's what you want to know for tonight, we need to thank Nancy. It has been really wonderful. I very much appreciate your time because I know how challenging these weeks have been in terms of your work. Thank you very much. And you have definitely inspired our community to want to have a look and use Birth to 5 Matters, which is what we wanted to achieve. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
You.
Lovely to you.